The storm rolled in fast, sweeping over the small town with a force that rattled windows and knocked branches loose from the old oak trees lining the streets, and inside his modest little house at the edge of town, James Carter moved from window to window checking the locks while the wind howled like a wild animal outside. Life had taught James to be cautious. 3 years of raising his daughter Lily alone had hardened him in some ways, yet softened him in others, because while his back ached from endless shifts at the hardware store and his bank account always seemed to hover on empty, his heart still softened whenever Lily looked up at him with her wide brown eyes. That night she was curled on the couch under a quilt, her small form half hidden by stuffed animals as she tried to stay brave through the rumble of thunder. James had just reassured her with a smile when a pounding knock came at the front door, sharp and urgent, startling them both. He frowned, surprised anyone would be out in weather like this, and when he opened the door, he found a woman standing on the porch, drenched from head to toe, her hair plastered to her face, her lips trembling as she hugged herself against the cold. "Please," she said softly, her voice barely audible over the rain, "my car broke down the road. I didn't know where else to go." For a moment James's instincts warred with each other, protect Lily, protect their home, don't invite trouble in, but then he saw the desperation in her eyes, the kind of desperation that wasn't faked, and his better nature won. "Come inside," he said firmly, stepping aside, and she slipped in, dripping water onto the old wooden floorboards as she shivered. James fetched a towel and one of his flannel shirts, and though it was too big for her, she clutched it gratefully as if it were the warmest thing she had ever been given. Her name, she explained once her teeth stopped chattering, was Emily Harper, and she had been driving through town when her car gave out. She tried to call for help but the storm had knocked out the cell towers, so with no other option she had followed the faint light glowing from James's porch. As she spoke, Lily peered out from behind the staircase, her messy curls falling into her face, and whispered, "Daddy, is she staying?" James gave his daughter a reassuring smile, answering, "Just for tonight," though even as he said it, something inside him stirred, a quiet whisper suggesting that fate rarely knocked at the door without reason. He gave Emily a blanket, set a mug of tea in her hands, and watched her stare into the fire with a tired but grateful expression, and though the storm still raged outside, for the first time in a long while James felt the air in his home shift, not with danger, but with possibility. By the time the morning sun broke through the thinning clouds, the storm had passed, leaving the streets littered with fallen branches and puddles that shimmered in the pale light, and inside James's house, Emily awoke to the faint smell of coffee and the quiet hum of Lily's laughter in the kitchen. She sat up slowly on the couch where she had slept, the borrowed blanket still wrapped around her, and for a moment she simply listened, surprised by the warmth filling this modest little home, so unlike the sterile hotel rooms and polished boardrooms she was used to. When she walked into the kitchen, she found James at the stove flipping pancakes with the kind of easy focus of a man who had done this 1,000 times, while Lily sat at the table, swinging her legs and scribbling on a piece of paper with crayons. "Good morning," James said without looking up, his voice calm but carrying that steady strength Emily had already noticed the night before, and Lily turned toward her with a bright smile, holding up a lopsided drawing. "I made this for you," she said shyly, and Emily felt a lump rise in her throat at the simple kindness. They sat together at breakfast, and though the pancakes were slightly uneven and the coffee a little too strong, Emily couldn't remember the last time a meal had felt so comforting. Later, James walked her down the road to see her car, its hood still open and useless, and when the mechanic finally came, he confirmed it would take several days for the parts to arrive. Emily's first instinct was to panic. She had deadlines waiting, a meeting in the city, people expecting her, but when James quietly offered for her to stay a little longer, the panic eased into something unexpected, relief. Over the next 2 days, life fell into a rhythm she hadn't known she craved. She helped Lily braid her hair for school, washed dishes beside James in the evenings, and even found herself laughing more than she had in months. She marveled at how James, despite his weariness, always made time for Lily, reading her a story, asking about her day, tucking her in with a tenderness that softened Emily's guarded heart. And in return, Lily's love for her father was a radiant, unshakable thing, one that made Emily ache with envy and admiration all at once. Still, beneath the ease of it all, Emily carried her own hidden truths. she hadn't told James she wasn't just a traveler passing through, that the life she had left behind wasn't simply work but an entire world of pressure, obligations, and an engagement she no longer wanted. Yet as she stood by the window one evening, watching James kneel in the yard to fix Lily's broken swing, Emily realized she was seeing more than just a man keeping his world together, she was seeing the kind of home she had never known she was searching for. Days passed with a gentle ease that felt almost dangerous, as though Emily were slipping into a dream she didn't deserve, and each hour in James's home only deepened the quiet pull she felt toward both him and Lily, for the little girl had grown so attached that she would grab Emily's hand at bedtime and beg her to stay just a little longer, while James, though outwardly steady and reserved, betrayed himself in the small moments. The way his eyes softened when she laughed, the way his voice grew quieter when they talked late at night after Lily had fallen asleep, the way his hand brushed hers when they walked back from town carrying groceries. One evening, beneath the fading glow of street lamps and the lingering smell of rain, Emily found herself walking alongside James in silence until the words she had been holding back tumbled out. "You've done more for me than you know, most people wouldn't have opened their door to a stranger." James looked at her, his jaw tightening as if wrestling with his own emotions, and said in a low voice, "Most people wouldn't stay. You've made Lily happier than I've seen in a long time." Their eyes locked, and for a breathless moment, the world seemed to shrink to just the two of them, the air charged with something fragile and unspoken, and Emily's heart raced as her hand lingered against his, not pulled away this time, but held there, trembling with possibility. Yet even as her soul leaned toward him, reality came crashing back the next morning when a sleek black car rolled into town and stopped in front of the hardware store where James worked, and from it stepped a man in a tailored suit whose presence felt like a slap against the quiet simplicity of James's world. Emily's face went pale as she recognized him, her fiancé, Richard, a man whose wealth and ambition had built her career but crushed her spirit, the man she had fled from under the pretense of work. "Emily," he said sharply, his voice smooth but commanding, "what are you doing here? You've embarrassed me enough. Get in the car. We're going home." James stood nearby, frozen, his expression unreadable but his eyes flickering with both confusion and pain, and Emily felt her heart fracture as she realized the truth could no longer be hidden. She wasn't just a stranded traveler, she was a woman torn between two worlds, the life of power and expectation waiting for her in the city, and the fragile but profound happiness she had discovered in a small home with a single father and his daughter who had already stolen her heart. Emily stood frozen between two lives as the rain-damp air thickened with tension, Richard's voice slicing through the small-town calm with demands and promises of wealth, status, and control, while just behind her, through the shop window, she could see James watching silently, his rough hand still holding the box of supplies he had been stocking when the man arrived, his face unreadable but his eyes heavy with the knowledge that she was not who he thought she was. That night, long after Richard had left in frustration when Emily refused to climb into his car, she sat by the fireplace in James's modest living room, her heart pounding with the weight of what she had to say, and Lily's soft breathing upstairs reminded her what was at stake, because this wasn't just about her anymore, it was about the fragile little bond they had built together. "I owe you the truth," she whispered, staring at the fire instead of his face. "I wasn't just passing through. I left behind a world I thought I wanted, a career, an engagement, all of it, but when I walked into this house, I found something I didn't even know I was searching for." James remained still, the shadows dancing across his tired but steady features, and after a long pause he said quietly, "Emily, I can't give you what that man can. I don't have money, I don't have influence, I barely make it through the month as it is, all I have is this house, my daughter, and what little I can offer." She turned to him then, her eyes glistening, and shook her head. "And that's everything I've ever wanted, honesty, love, a home. I don't care about wealth or power anymore. I care about you. About Lily. About the way this place makes me feel alive again." The silence between them cracked open into something new, something fragile and beautiful, and when James finally reached out, his calloused hand closing over hers, it felt like a promise stronger than anything Richard's world could offer. Their first kiss came softly, hesitantly, but it carried with it the relief of two souls who had been wandering for too long, and when Emily pulled away, there were tears on her cheeks but a smile on her lips, as though she had finally come home. Weeks later, the town had repaired from the storm and Emily had officially cut ties with her old life, starting a small consultancy she could run from home, a quiet work that left her evenings free to cook dinner with James and read Lily bedtime stories, and though the world outside still spun fast and demanding, inside the Carter home life moved at the steady rhythm of laughter, love, and second chances. What James had thought would be just one night of shelter had turned into forever, because destiny, as Emily liked to whisper when they sat together on the porch watching Lily chase fireflies, had other plans for both of them, plans that turned a storm into a beginning and a lonely house into a family.